So the final score at St James's Park is Newcastle 3, West Ham 1. A result for West Ham which pretty much confirms their relegation, you know what I'm saying? It pretty much confirms it. If you saw the way their fans were looking in the stands, those were a group of fans that had sort of accepted their fate, you know what I'm saying? They definitely accepted their fate. I feel sorry for them West Ham fans. They must have travelled, 7-8 hours by coach up to Newcastle. St James's Park, the away fans, they have to see it high into the heavens. There's not much of them, and they had to go watch that performance, you know what I'm saying? I think the most disappointing thing from a West Ham point of view, from the fans who are going to have to travel back to East London tonight, is that the team didn't show that fight, that they were in a relegation battle, you know what I'm saying? You wouldn't think West Ham are in a serious relegation battle by the lack of intent, especially late in the game, you know what I'm saying? Especially late in the game, you're thinking, all right, cool, we're down 2 goals, 15 minutes to go. You're expecting balls launched into the box. You're expecting, players trying to challenge for headers, crunching into tackles, shots on goal, crosses coming in from either side. You're expecting, guys like Mavropanos, Disasi to sort of, be in the box, trying to win, looking for knockdowns, someone to support the attackers like Wilson and Castellanos, but you just didn't get that in the later stages. West Ham went out with a whimper, which was very, very disappointing, especially after their bright start. They did start the game brightly, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, he got down the right, put in some good crosses, but you know what I'm saying, it just wasn't it today for West Ham. They weren't at the levels, they weren't at the races. However, Newcastle, on the other hand, they were very, very good. And I was thinking today, watching Newcastle, I was like, yo, where's this been all season? They played some very, very nice patterns of play. I do think part of that is due to West Ham being poor, West Ham giving them a lot of time on the ball, especially Bruno Guimaraes, you know what I'm saying? Bruno Guimaraes, he was probably my man of the match today. However, I can't lie. I think it was a mixture of Bruno G being his brilliant self, but also the fact that West Ham literally gave him the entire of St James's Park to just operate, pick out a pass, you know what I'm saying? There'd be times where Bruno G would get the ball and there's about 5 players in the pockets waiting to receive that ball in the number 10 position, and there's no West Ham player even attempting to press Bruno G, you know what I'm saying? Bruno G would have the ball and it'd be like Tonali, Osula, Voltamada, Barnes, Ramsey, they're all there just waiting to receive that pass between the lines. They're all there operating that space in between the midfield and the defenders, you know what I'm saying? That was West Ham's biggest problem today, in my opinion. The lack of press from midfield. Anytime Bruno G would get on it, Ramsey would get on it, Tonali would get on it, they would have so much time to pick their passes. And then, Trippier and Lewis Hall, they're flying down the flanks as well. For me, that was West Ham's biggest problem today, especially in that first half. Bruno G was absolutely running the show, you know what I'm saying? But it all started off, sort of going downhill for West Ham after their fast start. I feel like is when Will Osula picked Mavropanos' pocket, you know what I'm saying? From that moment there, I was like, yeah, them sort of things can't happen, you know what I'm saying? You can't be getting picked off there. Luckily for West Ham, nothing came from it initially. But yeah, I was thinking, yeah, things like this can't be happening, you know what I'm saying? But Will Osula, shout out to him, man. In my opinion, he needs to be starting games for Newcastle. I'm always so impressed when I watch Will Osula play, to be honest. I'm not going to act like I watch every single Newcastle game in depth, like full 90 minutes. However, anytime I watch him play up top, I think he's so good. I think he's sharp. I think he's bright. I think, he's willing to press all the time. I think he's got good feet. He showed today that he can finish left foot and right foot, you understand? I think Will Osula, he needs to mark his, there's a lot of uncertainty about certain players at Newcastle, who's going, who's leaving the club, who's staying. I feel like if he stays, he should be the one leading the line for Newcastle. I think he's earned that right, in my opinion. Not just this game, but just throughout this entire season, I've been so impressed. Can't forget about the goal at against Man United as well, to give Michael Carrick his first loss. But Will Osula, quality play from Will Osula. Just a brilliant player, in my opinion. But yeah, after that Will Osula moment where he picked Mavropanos' pocket, Newcastle started to get a few chances, You obviously had the Guimaraes cross where it came off the hand of Thomas Souček. VAR looked at it. They said no pen. I didn't think it was a pen either, to be honest. I think if they would have given it, it would have been a bit harsh, considering, you know, Souček is just, you know, he's battling with his man type of thing. I don't think he's really, you know, aware of where his arm placement is. I think he's just trying to, you know, defend, focused on, you know, defending his man, battling, jostling with his man. I don't think that was a penalty, you know what I'm saying? I don't personally think that was a penalty. Then there was another time where that man again, Will Osula, nice little skill, you know what I'm saying? Got past two West Ham players, got in the gap, had a shot with his left foot, but it ultimately got blocked. But yeah, that was literally just Newcastle showing intent. And West Ham, they were holding on for dear life in those, you know, first 20 minutes. But ultimately, the breakthrough came for Newcastle, where, in my opinion, it's just a poor mix-up, you know what I'm saying? When you look at certain teams fighting relegation, there's just certain things that happen to these, you know, clubs who are battling relegation, where you just look and say, you know, when these sort of things happen, you just sort of know, you know what I'm saying? You just sort of know. When things like that happen, where the keeper's trying to play to the centre-back, but, you know, Mavropanos can't get there, the keeper's overhit the pass, and then Harvey Barnes steams in. He did very, very well to, you know, steam in, intercept. You know, Harvey Barnes was alive there. And then Harvey Barnes, just to have that composure, just to sort of set himself when he's at the byline, doesn't smash it across, doesn't just play it blindly like some other wingers would do, just takes his time, you know what I'm saying? Just takes his time, steady himself, just puts a little bit of lift on the cross, so Voltemada can just volley it home, you know what I'm saying? Voltemada, just a little side volley with his insteps, 1-0 to Newcastle, you know what I'm saying? And that'll be good for Voltemada, because he's been on a bit of a dry spell after starting his Newcastle career so brightly. So yeah, 1-0 to Newcastle. But when you're in a relegation battle, as West Ham are, you don't need them needless goals, you know what I'm saying? You can't afford to have them needless goals. And then after that, Newcastle were just bopping in. The patterns and the triangles that Newcastle were playing in that first half, like I said at the start, where's this been all season? You know, Ramsey, Bruno, Tonali, Voltemada dropping in deep, Osula making runs in channels. It was beautiful football, I'll be honest. It was beautiful football to see. And what epitomized that beautiful football was Will Osula's first goal to make it 2-0. You know what I'm saying? They play, you know, the ball just goes bang, bang, bang. If it comes to Jacob Ramsey, he slides Will Osula in. Will Osula takes one touch, steadies himself with that weak foot, and just slides it past the West Ham keeper to make it 2-0. You know what I'm saying? He did something that Bryan Mbeumo couldn't do today. You know what I'm saying? That's probably what Bryan Mbeumo should have done. For both players, respectively, it was both on their weak foot. You know, Bryan Mbeumo, he sort of leans back, smashes it over the bar, whereas Will Osula, he just, you know, slides it through the keeper's legs, keeps it down, and it's 2-0 Newcastle. And at this point, you're probably thinking, yo, West Ham are in trouble here, you know what I'm saying? A confident Newcastle side at St. James's Park, you know, they're in a good mood. It's their last home game of the season. You're thinking it's looking dark for West Ham, you know what I'm saying? It's looking dark, especially, you know, they're playing 5 at the back, so you're thinking, all right, cool, where's the goal coming from? However, Nuno Espirito Santo, shout out to him, because he was brave. He made that change early. He took off Todibo, brought on Tati Castellanos, and in my opinion, that was the correct decision. Obviously, Todibo, being a professional, being a footballer, being out there wanting to help your team, he didn't look too happy, but ultimately, in my opinion, it was a change that Nuno had to make, you know what I'm saying? Nuno had to make it. When you're fighting relegation, you have to act early. He couldn't afford to, you know, wait after half time, wait on 45 minutes to make that change. That change had to happen there and then. He brought on Castellanos, and Castellanos immediately, he just makes an impact, because when Castellanos came on, West Ham looked a bit more threatening in that first half, you know what I'm saying? Anytime he comes off the bench or anytime he plays, in my opinion, he brings energy, he brings a fire, you know what I'm saying? He's Argentinian, you know, Argentinians, they bring that fire. They're not going down without a fight. We all know, you know, Carlos Tevez, the way he saved West Ham from relegation. Was it 20 years ago? Pretty sure 20 years ago, you know, Argentinians, they always have that fire, you know what I'm saying? They'll run, they'll chase, they'll try to win the game, try to do anything to win, you know what I'm saying? So he definitely made an impact when he first came on. West Ham started playing, you know what I'm saying? They started playing, they started getting up the pitch, having a few half chances, so he definitely made a difference. When Castellanos came on, you know, he got a chance himself. You know, Somerville down that left-hand side, who I think was one of the West Ham players who couldn't hold his head up. You know what I'm saying? He actually tried. He went for it. Him and Castellanos, I think they actually stood up, tried to be counted for. And yeah, I think Somerville was very, very bright. Gets to the byline, cuts it back. Similar to the cross that Harvey Barnes gave to Voltemada. Castellanos, he takes it instep on the volley, Nick Pope produces a good save, you know what I'm saying? And then there was another time where Somerville does well to cut in. He puts in a great ball into the box, but Callum Wilson, he's on his heels. I don't know whether he didn't think that the ball was going to come to him, but, you know, the ball rolls under his foot from the cross, and I'm thinking, yo, Callum Wilson, normally a striker of, you know, Callum Wilson's experience, he's scored goals in the Premier League. You're thinking, yo, I was expecting him to just take a touch and hit it, but he missed the ball. I don't know whether, you know, he just misjudged the flight of it, or he was too busy about, you know, trying to get free from his man. But that was a real chance, you know what I'm saying? That was a real chance. But anyway, that was the end of the first half. That was the end of the first half. Newcastle 2, West Ham 0, sorry. And yeah, it was looking bad for West Ham. Like I said, they did show a bit of fight towards the end, but ultimately it didn't seem like they were creating clear-cut chances so that they could score, you know what I'm saying? So goals from Baltimore, Willa Sula. I forgot to mention the Willa Sula, the Michael Jackson celebration. That was cold. He fully got the white glove and everything. That was cold. But yeah, 2-0 Newcastle, they were in control. I feel like yet again, West Ham in the second half, they had a few half chances, a few moments where you looked at it and you went, oh, they might have something there, you know. Mateus Fernandes had that little pop shot on the edge of the box where I think he played a 1-2 with somebody, takes it on his left foot, he struck it, but it was straight at Nick Pope, comfortable for Nick Pope. Somerville, he played a nice 1-2 with Juve, but his shot got blocked as well. Callum Wilson, he had a moment where, you know, he got played in. Malik Chow, he sort of slips. Wilson tries to play it into Castellanos, but the pass gets intercepted by Botman. I think Botman did very, very well to sort of slide. Botman did well to slide in and intercept that pass. But West Ham, they did have a few moments. However, the man who held David Raya down, man. The man who held David Raya by his shoulders when they played Arsenal at home, he ultimately lost the ball and cost them the third goal. Pablo, he comes onto the pitch, you know what I'm saying? When you come onto the pitch, especially, we all know Premier League, you have to get to the races very, very quickly. But he receives the ball from a throw-in from Juve, and he gets picked off, you know what I'm saying? He gets picked off. It was a bit too lackadaisical, a bit too lackluster. Gets picked off. Joe Willock does very, very well to pick him off. Ball falls to Willa Sula. Willa Sula does very, very well in terms of, you know, he's driving. You can see that, you know, he's checking his shoulders, scanning his options. He looks left, sees no one there, sees that Joe Willock is in support on the right, slides in Joe Willock. Joe Willock does very, very well to just compose himself, slide it back across to Willa Sula, and that's 3-0. And at that point, it's game over. West Ham, there's no coming back from this, you know what I'm saying? Game over. Willa Sula, once again, like I said before, he had a quality game. I really rate him as a player. 3-0 Newcastle. They're home and away. They're home and dry, sorry, in front of their own fans. Last home game of the season for them. They did very, very well. You know, they came out with a fire. They came out with a passion, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, 3-0. Willa Sula, game, set, and match pretty much. But then straight away from the West Ham kickoff, the West Ham goal kick, out of nowhere, bro, out of nowhere, the ball comes, the ball is just lofted into the Newcastle half. And the man who I said made a difference in that first half, he definitely made a difference in the second half as well. Tati Castellanos, the ball just comes over his head, it bounces, and he just produces an absolute rocket of a volley to send it over Nick Pope. And yeah, West Ham, just like that, 3-1. What an absolute rocket, bro. You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of the Jamie Vardy one versus Liverpool. You know when Mahrez just sprayed the ball, one bounce, and Vardy just here, and he left Mignolet was just there diving like this. That's what Nick Pope reminded me of. He reminds me of Mignolet when he was trying to scramble for Jamie Vardy's one. But what a finish from Castellanos, man. What a finish. Like I said, one of the very few West Ham players that showed a bit of fire. He definitely changed stuff for West Ham, gave them a bit of hope when he came on. But yeah, that was just out of absolutely nothing. They were showing, the Sky Sports were showing a replay, and then out of nowhere, I just hear the commentator just start screaming, Castellanos, what a finish, what a goal, potentially goal of the season. I was just thinking, yo, out of absolutely nowhere, like a Randy Orton RKO, you know what I'm saying? And just like that, West Ham produced a sliver of hope, you know what I'm saying? A sliver of hope. And after that, they did have a few chances. They did come into the game, you know, Castellanos himself, he clips the bar, the ball comes in, he takes it on his chest, makes good connection with the volley, but it just clips the outside of the post. If it was on target, Nick Pope had no chance, to be honest. And then another ball comes in. Pablo puts the ball in. Castellanos, he flicks it on. And then he has another bite of the cherry, another rebound. But Nick Pope, he's there to it as well. Then there was the Callum Wilson, the penalty claim, where maybe, you know, the thing is with these, you know, these penalty claims for me personally in the Prem is that they're a bit inconsistent, because I've seen things like that given, you know what I'm saying? We've seen things like that given. So, you know, maybe for me, maybe not a penalty. I agree with the decision, but the thing is, it's like, it's weird because I've seen them given, you know what I'm saying? I've seen them ones given with Callum Wilson. He got there in front of Lewis Hall. So, but I'm pretty sure you can find a similar incident that happened this season where the pen was given. So we need that confirmation and clarity of like what the difference is between what is a pen and what's not a pen. But ultimately, Callum Wilson didn't get the pen, and West Ham had a few chances. Jared Bowen as well. Jared Bowen, you know, they pick off Newcastle in Newcastle lose the ball in midfield, and they go in. I think it's like 4v3 or it's 4v4. It's Bowen, it's Castellanos, it's Wilson. They're all flying forward, and I personally feel like Bowen should have played Castellanos. I think Castellanos on the left, coming onto it with his right foot, potentially that can curl that ball into the far corner. I think he was the best option for him. But, you know, Somerville was there asking for it as well. But Bowen took on the shot. And if you're going to take on the shot in that position and not pass the ball, you have to produce something good. You know what I'm saying? You have to make the keeper work there. And I think a guy of Jared Bowen's quality, he has to make, you know, Nick Pope work a bit more, because it was just straight at him. He went for power, went for the laces, but it was just straight at Nick Pope ultimately. But yeah, that was pretty much it for West Ham. The last 10-15 minutes, they didn't really trouble Newcastle. The last 10-15 minutes literally just felt like a ceremony for Newcastle. You know, Voltamada came on, he was clapping the crowd, no stress. Trippier came off, he was clapping the crowd, you know, no stress. It didn't feel Osula as well. It didn't feel like, you know, Newcastle were on the ropes and West Ham were really going for it, throwing the kitchen sink at it. You know, even Kieran Trippier was doing a sideline interview like he's in the NBA or in the NFL. It was crazy work. You know, he was getting asked about his time at Newcastle. So you could tell that it wasn't Newcastle were chilling. It wasn't a nervy finish at all, because I'm pretty sure if it was a nervy finish where West Ham were really, you know, peppering Newcastle, I don't think Kieran Trippier would be standing there that relaxed doing an interview talking about his time at Newcastle, you know what I'm saying? But ultimately, it was disappointing from a West Ham point of view, because they did not throw the kitchen sink at it like you would expect them to do, like you expect a team to do in a relegation battle like that. But yeah, 3-1, that's how the game ended. Shout out to Bruno Guimaraes for me, man of the match. He was everywhere today, not just on the ball, but off the ball, winning key fouls, retaining the ball, just made it tick today. So shout out to Bruno Guimaraes, man. And yeah, Newcastle, they end their home season with a win. And as for West Ham, relegation is looking imminent. Relegation is looming. Championship is calling, unless they have to just hope for a miracle that they can win on the final day and Tottenham Hotspur lose to Chelsea and then somehow lose their final game of the season as well. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, Tottenham going to Stamford Bridge, they don't have the best record, but I feel like they would be very invigorated and very encouraged by this result and lack of performance from West Ham today. But that was the game. Newcastle 3, West Ham 1.